also discussed the derivation of Hicksian demand functions. Just to recall you that we discussed that Hicksian demand functions are the functions of prices and the given level of utility, and they are also called utility held constant demand functions, well known as compensated demand functions. So this demand function has multiple names. All names are derived from its characteristics. So today we'll talk about the properties of Hicksian demand function. Is the slide visible to everyone? Is this?
Yes.
Is it?
Yes, sir.
It is.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Now let's start with the properties of Hicksian demand function. First property of Hicksian demand function is homogeneity. Hicksian demand function is homogeneous of degree 0 in prices. We'll discuss it. The second property is balanced budget balancedness, which means that it satisfies the utility constraint. So if you just look at these two properties, then they have some similarity with the properties of Marshallian demand function. The first property of Marshallian demand function was also regarding the degree of homogeneity. That was homogeneous of degree 0 in prices and given income. Then the second property of Marshallian demand function was this, that Marshallian demand function satisfy the budget constraint. But here in this case, the constraint is utility. So therefore, the Hicksian demand function satisfy the utility constraint. So here is one typo, kindly correct it in your notes. Property number 2. MDF, it's not MDF, it is HDF, Hicksian demand function. So it's a typo, kindly correct it. Property number 2 is Hicksian demand function satisfy the utility constraint. Mistakenly, it's written as MDF, so kindly correct it as HDF. Property number 1, Hicksian demand function is homogeneous of degree 0 in all prices. What it means? That if the price of all the commodities, if all prices change by the same proportion, then your demand will be unaffected. How we do it mathematically, we have done it here. Look at this. If all prices and income of consumer, again a mistake here. We should not have the term income here because income is not engaged here, okay? And here again it's MDF, so it make it correct. It is HDF. It is HDF. So it's a common typo which I committed here. Actually, it's just a cut paste. वहाँ से उठा के मैं यहाँ पेस्ट किए और करके मैंने वो उसमें करेक्शंस करना शुरू किए. तो वो मुझसे फिर कहीं पे ये मार्शेलियन को चेंज करना मिस कर गया हिक्सियन में. तो हो सकता है ये आगे भी आए. Okay. We have the Hicksian demand function, which is the function of prices and utility. Given utility, we multiplied prices by a constant t and utility by a constant t. And this constant can be factored out with power 0. If this is so, then Hicksian demand function are homogeneous of degree 0 in prices. Now next, you know that in one of our previous class, we discussed about the Euler's theorem. That Euler's theorem can be applied if a function is homogeneous. This particular function is homogeneous of degree 0, so we can apply it. I am considering a case of n number of commodities. Now, it means that this Pi, the price of ith commodity, it will be P1, P2, P3, P4 up till Pn. So here we are applying the Euler's theorem. Derivative of the first x1 with respect to P1 into P1, then its derivative with respect to second price into P2, derivative of x1 with respect to third price into P3, and so on, the derivative of x1 with respect to price of last commodity into Pn, it's equal to function into degree of homogeneity. So since degree of homogeneity is 0, the 0 into function is 0, so we wrote here 0. Now you can see here that this particular equation, we can convert it into elasticity. So that's what we have tried. We are dividing both sides by x1. We are dividing both sides by x1. So if we are dividing both sides by x1, okay, we are dividing both sides by x1. So this is what we have done here. We have divided both sides by x1. So here it's P1 over x1, here it's P2 over x1, here it's Pn over x1. Here it is 0 over x1. So 0 over x1 is 0, so we wrote it 0. Now look at the first term. Curly x over curly p into p over x. It's the own price elasticity. curly x over curly P2 into P2 over curly x, it's the cross price elasticity with respect to price of second commodity. So we'll get the cross price elasticity with respect to price of third commodity, and finally we'll get the cross price elasticity with respect to price of nth commodity. So it means that sum of all own price and cross price elasticities is equal to 0. Sum of own price elasticity and all cross price elasticities is equal to 0. But here one thing is important which is to be noted, that we are talking about the Hicksian demand function. So it means that we are talking about the elasticities on which the utility is held constant. It's written there in the last name that these are not the Marshanian elasticities, these are the Hicksian elasticities derived from the demand curves along which the utility is held constant. So sum of on price, cross price elasticities of what utility held constant demand function is equal to 0. This is property number 1. Any question regarding property number 1? Okay. Property number 2. Hicksian demand function satisfies the utility constraint. What it means? That if you are given a utility function, and in that utility function you substitute the Hicksian demand function, then that Hicksian demand function will satisfy the utility constraint. We will do it here. Let's say this is your utility function. Utility, actually we have to go back one step. The one step is in fact missing here. I will just use board here to elaborate it. Whiteboard is visible? Whiteboard is visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
No, sir. It is not.
Now, let's take a utility function. We know that utility is the function of commodities. Say, for example, X, one commodity. We have to write it with the mouse, so that's why writing will be very bad. Utility is the function of X1 commodity, X2 commodity, and so on. If there are n number of commodities, you can write them here. N. This is the utility function. Utility is the function of commodities. You can take 2 commodity case, you can take n commodity case. Okay. Now, in place of this x1, this x2, this xn, and all the x's are here, if in place of all these x's, x1, x2, x3, we substitute the Hicksian demand function, then we'll get something like this. Utility is the function of first commodity is x1, and in place of this x1 we will say it's not the ordinary x1, it's the Hicksian demand function, which is the function of prices and the given level of utility. Okay, then will come the second one, x2, Hicksian, which will be the function of prices and the given level of utility, and so on. This is exactly the same which we have done here. Look at this one. This is exactly the same which we have done here. That utility is the function of x, and which x we are taking? We are taking the Hicksian demand functions, which are the function of prices and the given level of utility. Okay. Now this presentation is visible to you or not?
No, sir. No, sir.
Presentation is not.
No, sir. No, whiteboard is visible.
Nothing is visible, sir.
Nothing is visible. वाह कितनी अच्छी बात है यार. ये तो हमारी पूरी कौम का यही हाल है कि हमें पता ही नहीं हमें जाना किधर है, हमारी मंजिल क्या है, कुछ पता नहीं है, हम बस चले जा रहे हैं, चले जा रहे हैं, चले जा रहे हैं. ऐसे ही नहीं.
सर इंटरनेट
आप बताइए यार.
से लोड नहीं होता.
आप बताइए.
अब आ रही है सर, अब आ रही है. अब सर
एक
मुझे भी नहीं आ रही.
वो आपके इंटरनेट की स्पीड पे डिपेंड करते हुए
सर
5-10 सेकंड में आ जाएगा सबकी स्क्रीन पर. जी ये विजिबल है सबको.